Hi everyone. This week I have for you our worksheet that I just posted. Um, it's called Rhythm Drills, and it's on specifically. It includes dotted quarter notes. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little example on that, but I'm going to talk to you about what the dotted quarter note is and a dot in general. Sometimes I made up a nice little thing here. The dot, or the rule of the dot. Okay. Okay, here it is. The dot can be used on any note. Any type of rhythm can have a dot on it. The dot adds one half of the value of the note it's attached to. Now that might be a little confusing, but we're going to look at why that is. And down here it says, it's important to know the value of a note and how to, here's that word, subdivide. Subdivide the notes. Well, what does subdivide mean? Subdivide, you can think of it as in fractions. When you take a whole, something that's one, and you split it in half, you get two halves. When you split a half in half, you get two quarters. When you split a quarter in half, you get two eighths. When you split an eighth note in half, you get two sixteenths, and so on. It'll keep going forever because the numbers can go forever, although we won't go past eighth note. An eighth note, you would have to know when you saw a note. So, for example, if I see this top note, if I see that note right there is a dotted quarter note. Okay, you can see that it's the note, it's the quarter note, plus it has the dot right next to it. Now you see I have three eighth notes next to it because half of a quarter note is an eighth note. So in a quarter note, there are two eighth notes to begin with, and I've taken half of a quarter note, which is an eighth note, and added it. So three eighth notes are in one dotted quarter. If you look up here, it says two eighth notes equal one quarter. Half of a quarter is one eighth. So a dotted quarter is 1.5 beats, which is true. If I was counting this, that gets a little more tricky because I have to remember how I count eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So subdividing, I would say that I have three eighth notes here. I've subdivided that note, okay? Now, in addition to subdividing it, if I wanted to understand what it sounds like, I could say a note, I could sing it, and clap. If I subdivide, let's say I'm in a measure where there's a dotted quarter note, an eighth note, and then three quarter notes. Okay? Actually, two quarter notes after that. Because you'll see 1.5 plus an eighth note equals 2. So we can only have, if it's a measure of 4/4, we can only have 4 in the measure. Okay? If I take that, if I want to subdivide that measure, I have to subdivide the smallest value. So the smallest value is an eighth note. Okay? And if I clap 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I keep it going, I could sing the rhythm. Da, 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 da. So here's how I would count it out loud. 1 and 2 and, 1, 2 and 3. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mr. D is getting old and not remembering. Okay? That's a little confusing the way it is. Again, I would look at it and I would try to think of 1.5 notes. How would I count that? If it's 1 and 2 and the next note, if I was doing a dotted rhythm, for example, on your sheet, if you look in the beginning there in the first measure, you can see that the dotted quarter note happens on beat 3 and the and happens on the and of 4. Okay? That's because there are two The two eighth notes are taken up for 3 and, are 2 eighth notes. There are 3 eighth notes in that dotted quarter note. The beat 3 and 4 are all in that one quarter note with the dot. Then the last eighth note is the and. So if I counted that, I would go 1, sorry, my hands are shaking. I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? I know it's a little confusing, but really what you're doing is you're creating a skipping rhythm. The first note is longer than the second note. The dotted quarter note is longer than the eighth note. Okay? So that's one of the things we have to remember. All right. Now, the same thing can happen. I'm just going to go really quick down here. On this thing down here, this is a dotted half note. A lot of you have gotten to the dotted half note. A dotted half note is a half note with a dot. So it's worth 3 quarter notes, because when you split a quarter note in half, you get 2 quarter notes. When you split a half note in half, you get 2 quarter notes. Half of a half note is a quarter note. So 3 quarter notes. 1 plus 2 becomes 3. Dotted half note is 3 beats. Half note is equal to 2 quarter notes. One half of a half is 1 quarter note. So then you would have, this would be a 3-beat rhythm. Okay. On your worksheet here, what they want you to do here, they explain it, and it is write and count, write in the counts. So you saw what I did on the bottom. I wrote in which beat they were on, how they worked. Okay. And it says the next one, tap and count. It says tap, count out loud. Okay. So if you're tapping, what it's asking you to do is keep a beat, and then you could say it out loud. You could say 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. You could tap the beat or tap the rhythm. Okay. And you do that for the whole thing down here. Now, again, if you have confusion with that, that's why we have the office hours. Okay. So you can come and ask me how that went. I know we're getting down to the end here because we only have about 3 weeks left of where I'm going to be able to give you stuff, because there's been, they don't have a definite date for when you're going to return your computers, but that's going to be in the beginning of June. It would have to be, because the teachers have to get in and get stuff. We have to get our things. We have to get your things bagged up so you can come and collect them, that kind of thing. So that takes a little while. And also, I will tell you this. The day that you return your computer, if you're borrowing a school instrument, if you're borrowing one of my instruments, that is the day you have to bring back your instrument. And what you'll do is you'll put your name and your grade, your homeroom teacher, on a piece of paper in the case. You're going to make sure everything is in the case that needs to be there. You keep your book, okay, because you're going to need it for next year. But you keep your book because that's yours. You own it. The instrument with that note comes back to me, okay? If I'm not at your school, I'm not at your school. You can still return it, and the principal or whoever is collecting the laptops will put it aside for me and will hold them for me, okay? That's how I'm going to get the instruments back. So just to let you know about that. And I will have more about that. People who are renting, basically it's assumed that you would keep your instrument and just keep going next year when we start again. And you would come back to us. Or if you're going over to one of the middle schools, you would keep going with your instrument there. Because some of you who've been renting for 2 years now, you're almost at the time where you can buy your own instrument, where you can use the credit built up you can use for it. Or your first year and you're going to build up, you're almost halfway there. Okay? So more to come on the updates in a different video. But that is about your dotted notes, okay? So give it a try, see what it is. And I did post a video on basic counting. So you should try that one out too, okay? And I will see you again very soon.